I've been delaying this review by much longer than I'd like to share, but all this time has benefited these IEMs because of the longer burn-in it's had, and these have matured very well over all this time. Thank you to the folk at Rose Techniques for making this review possible by sending me this demo unit. All thoughts and opinions are my own. So let's jump straight into how these are built. When it comes to the unboxing experience, these do put on a bit of a show. You get a much larger box than you'd get with more affordable IEMs, and it's loaded with everything you need and more. You get the IEMs, a leatherette carry case, a whole set of silicone ear tips, foam ear tips, filters, a blue cord Rose Pro cable which comes along with the deluxe package, and a RZ550 DAC amp which also comes with the deluxe package. And of course you get a USB-C to USB-C cable so you can connect the RZ550 to your computer or phone. The DAC amp is beautifully made and looks like a miniature monolith which has an aluminium alloy and a matte finish which does make it look and feel quite premium. The underside of it does have a neat print of what's inside it and a few specs mentioned, and it has a 3.5mm output as well as a balanced 4.4mm output. It does support up to a 300 milliwatt output, so is no slouch for IEMs, but this power output is through the 4.4mm balanced jack, whereas the 3.5mm has a 240 milliwatt output, which is pretty impressive for such a tiny device. Either way, it drives IEMs quite effortlessly. The cable provided with the deluxe edition is the Blue Rose Pro IEM cable, which is a dual braided 4-core one with a braided meshing over it. This cable is terminated to a 4.4mm balance jack, and the other end of it has a 0.78mm 2-pin connector to connect to the IEMs. Moving on to the IEMs, these are the starry blue variant and look gorgeous in the flesh, especially when they catch light. This one doesn't have an X marking like most of the IEMs do, in part because there is some level of customization you can do with this print. If you'd like to make your own custom print, you can always write to the customer care contact and have it set up. At first glance, these IEMs did appear to be large and I didn't think they'd fit me well, but these actually fit quite snug without causing any discomfort. The nozzle does sit deep in the ear canal depending on how much you insert it, and I find it a lot more comfortable with foam ear tips. Near the 0.78mm connectors, you'll notice a little opening. This has been done to let the IEMs breathe, so to say, and it does help with how these sound, especially when it comes to their staging. The inner housing does have 3 channels that lead to the nozzle, so the BA and dynamic drivers are carrying over the highs, mids and lows to you so as to avoid internal distortions within the housing thanks to this design. These come with 10mm dynamic drivers and 6 BA drivers per IEM, so that's a total of 14 drivers between the two IEMs. They have a frequency response of 20 Hz all the way up to 20,000 Hz and have a very easy to drive low resistance of just 18 ohms. On a volume front, I have been listening to these via the RZ550, of course, and I find that 20% volume is more than adequate enough for easy listening. Now, for a little bit of a fun listen, I have pushed these up to about 25 and 30% volume, but when you go up to about 35 and 40%, these do get a little too loud for me. So if you do intend on preserving your hearing, I wouldn't recommend listening to this beyond 40% over prolonged periods of time. Now the good news is, even at lower volumes, if you are winding down at the end of the day and reading a book or whatever it is you do, even down low at 5% volume, this does maintain a good level of detail and depth during your music listening. Soundstage on these IEMs is certainly wider than what you'd hear on affordable IEMs, and that is also primarily because these are not exactly affordable IEMs out there, but it does have a nice wide stage, a horizontal stage. A lot of the sounds do come from a little, or they appear to come from a little out of the IEM, and it does appear to have some vertical stage as well. And this is primarily thanks to that little venting port it's got next to the 0.78 connector. So it does help it breathe a little bit better. So that does enhance soundstage to a certain extent. And one thing to keep in mind is that your soundstage's performance can rely a lot on the kind of recording and mix you're listening to. If you're throwing compressed audio at this, don't expect it to have a wider stage. The minute you start throwing higher res audio at this, it sounds much wider on a soundstage front as well as imaging. And speaking about its imaging, it is quite clean and detailed. In fact, I've noticed that a lot of IEMs that come with BA drivers, I do prefer how they detail and give you that presentation, because they're not sort of over sharpened. There are a lot of IEMs with dynamic drivers that can be a little too aggressive with detailing. They're too sharp edged, whereas this is slightly on the softer side. Now, you can zone into all your nuances quite effortlessly. It is quite easy to focus in on any details you want across the board. The separation is of course quite good. When it comes to its timbre or timbre, it's not the truest sounding set of IEMs I've heard. It does seem to be slightly veiled in trueness, in the sense it's almost there. It's not as true as I'd like it to be, because I do spend a lot of time with an acoustic piano and other acoustic instruments, and this is not quite there. But it's not that it's not enjoyable. It does a good job of getting there, but it's not really almost touching the instrument. I do wish it were a little truer, but it does get close enough and true enough to enjoy acoustic instruments. But if you are an absolute stickler for wanting absolute truth, and you are a musician and an audiophile, you might feel that slight difference in reality and listen to these, but I'd say these are still good fun to listen to. High frequencies come at you with a sense of urgency, but almost like it's coming from an old friend, because it's assertive but soft at the same time. This range does have a tweak for certain, but doesn't have a sense of aggression like some IEMs can tend to have. So these can stay in your ears for longer listening sessions without causing fatigue anytime soon. There is terrific separation here, so it's very easy to decipher what percussive instruments are being shaken or hammered here. This, with a combination of good imaging and staging, makes these a very fun listen depending on what tunes you decide to throw at it. Listening to Harlock the Brave, performed by Soul Hunters, a tambourine lures in soft cymbal hits into this very groovy number, and right through this track, this range has a sparkle without a piercing presence, ensuring a supple delivery of music in this range. Music here sounds tight, well defined, and does have a good sense of composure no matter what track you throw at these IEMs. Mid frequencies carry good separation here, but what really does stand out over here is female vocals. There is a recess in the lower mids, and usually when this kind of tuning is chosen, female vocals tend to sound thin and nasal, but Rose Techniques has managed to maintain a well-rounded vocal range here for female as well as male vocals, but it's the female vocals that have a little more presence. Instruments in this range have a very distinct separation from vocals, and thanks to how these image, it's very easy to enjoy your nuances between these two. Listening to Never Never Never, performed by Patrizio Buon and Renee Olsted, this lovely old classic sung in a more modern style does carry a good amount of emotion, which these artists do a great job of. Renee's voice stands out more prominently, and her performance through terrific modulation really is a joy to listen to with these IEMs, and this is a beautifully recorded and mixed track. Low frequencies do have a depth that should unsettle the mid frequencies and details, but it does leave them relatively untouched. This range is a little on the elevated side, but it's tastefully tuned so as to avoid hampering other frequencies. I wasn't expecting much of a weight with these IEMs after I heard it straight out of the box, but after it's had a good amount of run-in time, these have opened up in this range as well, and it isn't the tightest presentation in bass I've heard, but it does lean over to the fun side. You can listen to electronic dance music with these, minus the bloat, which gives you a different appreciation for this tuning, and it's able to emphasize natural instruments like an upright bass for jazz and blues, making those instruments a little more prominent. Listening to an old favorite of mine, Café de Flore by Dr. Rocket, this track's heart is in its bass line, and boy, this can be an enjoyable track with these IEMs. These aren't trying to impress you with their bass, which I like since it's comfortable in its own skin when it comes to its presentation. These frequencies aren't tweaked too much, so these stay clear away from giving you a headache from heavy thumping bass. They've tuned it just right. So to sum up, overall on a build front, I think these are put together very well. Now this is no doubt the deluxe edition, so you do get a higher quality cable than you would with the regular edition, and also you do get a higher end DAC amp, and this one is actually a very capable one. I have really liked how this sounds. So I'd say it's definitely worth going for the deluxe edition because you do get a overall better package. And over and above that, I really like that design on the IEMs. It's got that, well, night sky kind of look on it. It's very sparkly when you sort of look at it in different lights. It's a very nice looking finish. And what's cool is, like I did mention in the build section, that you can customize the kind of design that you want on that. In fact, I'll throw that up here again if you've not seen that, if you've missed that. But you will have to write to the customer care in particular before customizing your order. So it's worthwhile doing that because it is a cool touch. I mean, it's I've not really seen people do something like this with IEMs in particular. So I mean, it's worthwhile doing that if you do really want to personalize your IEMs, of course. The one thing that I don't like in particular, well, it's not a permanent dislike because it's kind of the unboxing experience. And I'm really splitting hairs here because, when I first unboxed it, there's a sleeve that sits outside the actual box and it's really super tight to sort of slide it out. I was worried I was going to damage the outer packaging. It's very tightly fitted onto that. And then when you do open it, I do wish that the internal overall packaging quality, the paper they used, the print, all that little stuff it'll only enhance the experience of the person who buys it and unboxes it. I've seen unboxing experiences that are a little more upmarket in more affordable IEMs. Usually IEMs do have a much higher level of unboxing, but this is literally only limited to the box. The box is only the gripe I have with this. Whereas when you start holding the product, the should I say the little carry case it comes with, the cable, the IEMs, the ear tips, filters, you name it, everything does feel very premium. So it's really only restricted to the box where I do have that gripe. Moving on to the sound, well, these do sound very different from the more affordable Rose Techniques IEMs that I've reviewed. Those I remember being more on the sibilant side of things. Like I remember those being a little uncomfortable for me. I'm not very sensitive in the sibilant range, but these did sound like that straight out of the box. And this is why I mentioned that, letting them run in and burn in for as long as they have. I have been exercising them, listening to them now and then whenever I've had a chance. And letting them, play for as long as they have has really exercised those drivers. And I've genuinely heard a difference from day one to now. So I don't find it to be sibilant like it was straight out of the box. It has sort of gotten a little warmer sounding. Over time, the lower frequencies have started sounding a little more enthusiastic and a little better structured than when it was straight out of the box. So that's something I'd recommend. Once you do get it, do at least I'd say 24 to 30 hour burn-in. I've done maybe with all the listening and an actual burn-in in the start, maybe 45 to 50 hours worth of burning in, and it does definitely benefit these IEMs. And if you are a skeptic, try it yourself. I mean, with any audio equipment, some IEMs are found are more sensitive to it than others, and likewise with speakers and so on. But it's something that if you are a skeptic about, just practice it yourself. Don't listen to anybody else. Form your own opinion. It's important to do that. But coming back to how these sound, well, they do lean slightly more towards the warmer side, and I've noticed that a lot of IEMs with BA drivers I tend to appreciate a lot more, because it's like they cannot throw details and imaging at you as like a pierced, or should I say a very sharp arrow, because I found a lot of dynamic drivers tend to do that when they're tuned to handle higher frequencies and upper mids, whereas as far as I know, this is dedicated, the dynamic driver is dedicated to lower frequencies only. So those BA drivers tend to sort of swaddle those higher frequencies and upper mid frequencies so as to make sure that they aren't daggers flying at you at high speed. So it is a much easier listening experience with IEMs that have BA drivers, at least in my experience. So I really do like how Rose Techniques has tuned these. These are a fun listen. You can keep them in for hours on end. It's going to be a fun listen. There's more than enough detail without being piercing. The female vocals in particular, any song that I chose with multiple voices, be it male and female, or choral music, operatic, if there was more prominence in the female vocals, that just stands in front of you more prominently than a male vocal will. And it's, I mean, if you're into that kind of music, this is going to be an absolute joy to listen to. And that lower frequency, I do like how it's tuned, especially for more acoustic music like jazz and blues, like I mentioned. Again, choral, operatic, you name it. If it's acoustic, it's fun. Dance music, it does do a good job of, for sure. But I don't think it's as big, and it's not big and bloated. It's better sort of controlled than having a bloated response. Of course, at this price, you should expect better quality across the spectrum, which this does do, of course. So all in all, it's a terrific set of IEMs. I have enjoyed spending all the time. I've not spent just 1 week with it. I've spent weeks on end enjoying this over time. It's genuinely been fun listening to it every time when it's burned in a little better over time. So anyway, instead of me rambling on, let's jump into how much these cost. Well, if you do want to buy this from the Rose Techniques website and wherever, I will leave all the links down below. But you do get two options. There is a value pack and there is a deluxe pack. So the value pack from the Rose Techniques website does give you a grey cord and the RZ300M. That's another little DAC that you can get. And that will cost you about $339.99. Whereas if you do want the deluxe edition, that comes with the blue cord that I've shown you and the RZ9039 DAC. That's the 550, the RZ550 that I've used. That came in the box. I think it's a very new 9039 DAC chip, and it's genuinely, it's a very capable one. It sounds great, and it's got great amping power as well. So this deluxe edition will set you back $439.99. Now, if you do want to buy this in India, this does have a maximum retail price of about 4,900. sorry, 49,999 rupees, but they are selling it right now for about 22,999. And you'll have to check on the link below that I provide to see if it's the deluxe. I'm not too sure right off the bat which one it is and what DAC you're getting with it, but I don't think you have customization options if you buy it from India, whereas if you buy it directly from the Rose Techniques website, you should be able to customize it after you write to that customer care email. Of course, if you try and get in touch with them, that should be much easier to do. Is this value for money? Well, it depends, of course, where you're coming from. Do you have this kind of budget to spend on IEMs, for one? And two is, are you looking for something like this? Are you looking for something that's, more warmer sounding? Are you looking for something that's more prominent in the female vocals? Because of all the IEMs I've heard over time, I don't remember saying specifically this, that female vocals are more prominent. So it's amazing that something like this does stand out as much as it does, while having so much detail and sort of texture in the other instruments and low frequencies and wherever else. So it's genuinely a very nice sounding set of IEMs, and I'd say it is great value for money. So of course I will leave the links down in the description below if you would like to buy these. And there you have it. That's my review on the QT-X, and I do hope that I've helped you make some sort of purchase decision. And of course, if you would like to help support the channel, I'm sure you know exactly how to. But of course, thank you for tuning in to Paul's POV for some sound advice.